Hello, everybody coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are able to turn your cameras on, we would love to see you. But if you can't do that, your camera has to be off. That's perfectly fine. We understand. My name is Andy Engel. I want to welcome you all. I lead virtual public programs here at Reimagine. This is the final session in our series, The Whole World in Our Hands, Connecting to Collective Grief. First, a little bit about Reimagine. We are a nonprofit organization catalyzing a uniquely powerful community. People of different backgrounds, ages, races, sexual orientations, gender identities, people of faith, people of no faith, all coming together to heal ourselves, our communities, and the world. We support each other in facing adversity, loss, and mortality, and we try to transform life's biggest challenges into action and meaningful growth. Reimagine resources, support groups, events like this one today are free, sliding scale, and accessible to you. This is made possible by the support and generosity of donors. So for those of you who have already made a tax-deductible donation when you registered for this program, thank you so much. Your gift will immediately support Reimagine's mission to help people of all walks of life transform the hard stuff into purpose and meaning. Our theme this month is collective grief, the wide range of responses to shared tragedies. In our first session a few weeks ago, we learned together. We heard and witnessed stories of collective grief from a designer of public memorials. We heard from a leader from the September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows, a group of surviving relatives who chose love over revenge. We had a clinical psychologist. We had a former United Nations International Observer in Bosnia who founded the World Happiness Foundation. And I am still buzzing from last week's workshop, the second part of our series, Telling the Bees. Michelle Cassandra Johnson created a virtual hive full of mindfulness, meditation, healing, and above all, sweetness. You can view both recordings of these programs in our video library, and my colleague Trina Williams from Reimagine, who's helping out today, she'll paste those links in the chat for you. And today, we close out this series, The Whole World in Our Hands, with action. Small, sweet steps to navigate the heaviness we're all feeling. More on that and our guest speakers soon. I do want to give a shout out to Reimagine collaborators. These are the folks that host events on our platform. Most of what you see on Reimagine's event schedule are produced by this amazing group of folks. You can host events too, by the way, and Trina can share a link to tell you how to do that. We've been encouraging our collaborators to present programs related to our monthly themes. So please check out these additional events related to collective grief and consider hosting your own program on our platform. On Friday this week, Cynthia Phelps, who is based in Asheville, North Carolina, is leading a weekly gathering through the end of the year. She's helping others process grief associated with the hurricanes, flooding, as well as other global catastrophes. And now just a few words about Zoom before we begin. For those who wish, you can click on the CC icon at the bottom of your screen to get captions if you need them. And if you would like to see the recording of the full transcript, you can click on the CC icon and select the View Full Transcript option. Also, when you open up the chat, and I hope you folks use it, you can save and download that chat by clicking on the three dots within the window. Please feel free to send me or Trina a private message in the chat If you're having any technical problems, we can try to help you out. And everybody should know we are recording this gathering today. We won't be recording and sharing out the breakout rooms, which will happen. So you will get a playback of this, and anyone who has registered for this. And now I'm going to stop this, and I want to share what's ahead in the next 70 minutes or so that we have together. Rabbi Tirzah Firestone and Lama Rod Owens, two esteemed spiritual leaders who have never been in dialogue before, and I'm so glad to bring them together. They will have a conversation for roughly 35 minutes or so, and I've asked them both to prime you for action in the face of the collective grief that we're all feeling. As you listen to these wonderful people, please use the chat for any reflections or questions that you might have for them. I'll try to collect the questions as we go along in the dialogue, because we'll have about 15 minutes or so of Q&A following the dialogue, and we'll try to get to some of your questions. Then after Q&A, our esteemed guests have to pop off, but I hope you'll all stay for the small peer-led breakout sessions that will take place for about 15 minutes or so. We'll have a set of prompts for you, and I'll share those later. And now I'm going to hand this over to our very special guests. Rabbi Tirzah Firestone is an author, Jungian psychotherapist, and spiritual leader in the International Jewish Renewal Movement. She's a renowned Jewish scholar and teacher, and I can attest to that because she's spoken at 2 previous Reimagine gatherings. Some of you may know her groundbreaking work on Kabbalah, depth psychology, and the reintegration of the feminine wisdom tradition within Judaism. Her book, Wounds into Wisdom, Healing Intergenerational Jewish Trauma, is the recipient of the 2020 Nautilus Book Award in Psychology. Lama Rod Owens. He is a Black Buddhist Southern queen. And whenever I say that, I feel like I just need to snap, if you don't mind. Thank you. He received his Master of Divinity in Buddhist Studies from Harvard Divinity School. He's the author of The New Saints and Love and Rage, The Path of Liberation Through Anger, and he's co-author of Radical Dharma, Talking Race, Love, and Liberation. He teaches on freedom, self-expression, and radical self-care. So, like I said before, I think we're all feeling the weight of the world right now. Of course, I'm eager to hear the two of you speak on mindfulness and spirituality as pathways for growth in these heavy times. But I want to kick this off to you with a question, and let the two of you continue on your own. This conversation that we're all having together isn't intended to be exclusively about political division in the US. This series is broad. Collective grief encompasses so much: war, terrorism, natural disaster, mass shootings, historical and contemporary racial, ethnic, and religious trauma. I could go on. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge election trauma. For many, it exposed and reopened a wound that never really healed in the first place. And for others, Election Day was a source of celebration and relief. I don't mean for the two of you to talk about directly about that. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, but how are you finding moments of joy? How are you seeing the glimpses of light in the face of all of this? How are the two of you individually, personally, taking care of yourselves right now? Where are those glimmers? Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for setting this up, Andy, and Reimagine, and Trina, and everyone. This is how I do it. I light a lot of candles. I'm going to light a candle for all of us. I do a lot of ritual. I do a lot of prayer, and I want to just start, because you're a holy brother, you're also a minister, you're a spiritual teacher. I want to just put ourselves in the
sacred presence, all of us, everyone, beautiful, beautiful people that have shown up today in the middle of the day. May this be radically present. May we hear. And that's for me, the greatest prayer right now, to be in alignment with the source of all life, the whole toward more conscious, more brilliant, more healed life, and to in my alignment with that power, to be a vessel, to listen well and to be a vessel. And please add anything you'd like to that prayer.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rabbi Tirzah. And just to add that we rely on our deep compassion, our care, our innate love as we enter into this dialogue to articulate things that many of us struggle with, right? But to hold this deeper intention that we're only articulating this in order to find and to embody the clarity here, to
Amen.
awaken the real medicine that we need to evolve together through this really difficult time. And may our hearts be held and supported. May we remember the love of so many beings around us as we open the sacred space for transformation.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Okay. You want to dive in?
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, deep gratitude to Reimagine and for everyone who's supporting these dialogues. I deeply appreciate this. And this is hard work right now. And I just want to honor that work. And it's hard work for both of us to show up, in this space, to have this dialogue, because, we have strong views about things, and we come from different traditions, but I think our intention is the same.
Yes.
Right? To be of benefit, to serve, to support, to open pathways to these ways of understanding and knowing the sacred and the divine, right? But to also figure out how to be in our bodies, in the world, as humans in relationships, as humans in communities and nations and societies, as humans who survive violence and harm over and over and over and over again, and as humans who have this deep capacity to be resilient, to touch and experience joy, right? And to tell the truth, right? As much as we can.
Yep.
That's what mindfulness is for me. The capacity to practice awareness in order to get to what's really happening, to tell the truth, so that we can get free from the patterns of harm that bind us, right? So having said that, as to the joy, right? I, for a very long time, have found deep refuge in my ancestors, in the lives of my ancestors, in the ways in which they chose to survive in order to dream me, to call me into this world,
Yes.
to live in the world in a way that they didn't get a chance to, right? And to honor that, right? I am deeply held by the joy that my ancestors held on to, even though there was so little to be joyful about.
Yeah.
Right? The gratitude for all of that, the community that I'm a part of, the people that I can go and receive care from, right? Um, Ritual ceremonies in the same ceremony that Rabbi Tirzah you opened with, that was so beautiful. These are the kind of things that I build my life around.
Mm, mm.
Right. To when we offer light, we're trying to remember that there is still light, even though it feels so dark right now.
Yeah.
And that light for me is hope. And I am a hopeful person. I am a hopeful person because my ancestors were hopeful people.
Yeah.
And their hope is what kept sustaining them, along with many other things: joy, devotion, faith, right? And so the light is what I hold on to right now. Just these little things.
Yeah. Yep. I love that you started with the ancestors. That's that's an ancient part of my ancient religion, but it's not in more recent years, is not talked about much. But you and I, Lama Rod, we both come from incredible histories of persecution and oppression, and yet, as you say so beautifully, we were dreamed into being. We are the answer to our. I often think about this, and I often say this in my ancestral healing courses. We are the answer to their prayers, our lives, which are relatively, I'm saying, free from oppression, relatively. We have the incredible opportunities which many of them did not have. So we're so privileged. And just recently, since I wrote my last book, Wounds into Wisdom, I started to open the doors of my consciousness, started to open up about, oh, they're all here. They're all here and talking, and they're blessing us. Many of them who are well and wise. Not everybody is well and wise on the other side for sure, but there are many who are just cheering us on and blessing us, and we're the embodiment of their best wishes, their best aspirations in life. So we are it. And, if we could just open those psychic doors and receive their energies, we'd be uplifted. And that's something that I have tried to implement in my daily prayers, and just connecting to the unseen dimensions, because man, do we need help right now.
Yeah, ancestral practice is something that I think many of us feel disrupted from, right? And as you were sharing, I think one of the words that come to mind, and this is a word that I often use, is the word remembrance, right? And I often attach that to the work of mindfulness, to remember, right? To remember where we come from, right? To remember what has been offered, what's been sacrificed, right?
Yeah.
And in terms of, working with my ancestors to remember, right? To remember that I am charged with the weight of living fully as a human, because humanity has been, and in many ways continues to be, denied for so many of us, including our ancestors, but to embody a real personhood, in this moment, that I deserve to be here, that I have a right to be loved, to experience safety, right? I have a right to experience joy, but I also have a right to struggle as well. To be human means to also struggle, because we're all going to struggle regardless of who we are, right?
Yeah.
To engage in all of that, to show up and to say yes, is one of the ways that I really honor the sacrifices of my ancestors.
That's beautiful, to say yes. It's hard to say yes right now, given what's happening. I think it's good to name that. Yes, so I'm saying yes to you, and just also feeling the tension in that yes, saying yes to facing into the losses, feeling them, there's an incredible teaching that I was given by someone who lost their daughter in a terrorist attack, who named Rami, who said you have to face into your loss and then feel the power of your pain, and that the power of your pain is really like a nuclear energy. It can be used for darkness, it can be used for death, but it can be used for light and hope and warmth. It's like a nuclear, just like nuclear energy. So harnessing the power of our pain, I just want to name our pain right now, that it feels like, there's been these incredible setbacks, like the plates beneath us for many people right now are shifting. And the things that we took for granted, ideals and hopes, and this forward movement, liberal democracy, whatever in the world, it's like all of a sudden it's like, what? And talking about ancestors, I've thought so much about my dad and my uncles who served in the for the cause of democracy, how they must be feeling looking at what's happening. So there's this big a kind of regression. Also, I'm going to name something else just to put it on the table to help all of us face into this. Might not be your grief, but it is mine. I'm personally suffering the loss of faith in the great 76-year-old's experiment that was called Israel, and feeling the stark departure from the prophetic Judaism that I love and live for and have taught all my adult life. That's at the core of Jewish faith. The radical prophets who said, no, we must stand up for the poor and the orphan and the widow, and we must guard and protect them. And those of us with privilege must stand in the way of harm. And, I have so many tears just saying that. And I just want to get naked here and just say this is a big question. What has become of us? And I think in this country as well, in the United States of America, we're asking what has become of us. So I'm sitting with that. I just wanted to name this grief and help us log on to these collective griefs that some of them may be yours, some of them may not. But I want to name it so we can face into it together.
Thank you, Rabbi, for this really powerful vulnerability and for naming the things that you're naming. I feel the heaviness from which you're touching into and expressing, right? And I name my own heartbreak as well, right? For the Palestinians, right? Just to be, very clear, the heartbreak and my anger, my rage, my fear, my despair, right? Watching the violence that they're experiencing,
Yeah,
by the state of Israel, and always feeling that that's not what God intended, right? That this violence, this harm, it is not divine, it is not sacred, right? It is the weaponizing of untended to trauma, right? And we have to learn how to articulate this, because this is part of the healing. And even saying that now, like in a space like this, I do feel the tension in my body, right? The elevated heart rate, the ways in which like my voice is catching a little bit in the back of my throat, right? I'm feeling into just this unembodied grief that's not just mine, but the grief of so many people in the communities and places I dwell who feel so helpless, right? Trying to stop this, right?
Yeah.
And never to erase the real trauma and the pain of Israelis, right?
Also, and stretching ourselves to encompass both. And that is really one of the big works that all of us here listening to and speaking through us today, how do we hold the tension of these of opposite views? Carl Jung would say, staying in the tension grows your soul, but it is so hard to do that because there are so many truths at play. And so, yes, the unresolved trauma, the deferred grief, all of that, that is in the background, the crying of the ancestors in the background, the unmetabolized traumas, historical traumas that have borne fruit in our present day. And how do we hold tension with that? Can I share one thing? Andy is asking, like, what helps? So what helps to alleviate this collective grief that we're in? And, so for me, it's like sitting with it, like you said, getting aware of it, sitting, not deflecting it, not making light of it, but just sitting into it and calling myself into the presence of the sacred. And but there's a really ancient Hebraic, it's really like as old as the first stories in the Bible, like thousands of years old. It's a ritual that when you hear a grief or when you're mourning, you take your shirt and you rip it open right over your heart. You just rip it, and the sound, it's a nonverbal gesture ritual that is like my heart is ripped because this person has been ripped out of life, and I'm mourning. It's like it's like a wail. Wailing is also incredible. So on Yom Kippur, which is the most sacred, holy of holy days in the Jewish calendar, this past year there were several groups in Brooklyn who put on, and it was also online, put on a Yizkor ritual for all of those, including October 7th, but the scores of thousands, tens of thousands of innocent non-combatants that had been killed. And there was so much grief. So Yom Kippur, you do a big memorial service, but there were 2,000 people in the park that met, and they did something incredible. Number one, everybody, the leaders gave us permission to just wail, to just uncork our throats and whoa, wail. And it was so powerful to hear 2,000 people wail at the losses of innocent men, women, children, babies, and then they pulled out a big piece of linen, cloth, maybe cotton, a big reel of it, and passed it through the crowd. Not everyone could touch it, of course, and then when they gave the signal, everybody ripped the cloth. They ripped it, and the sound of ripping, I don't know, there was something so healing about that. It was just people coming together to voice in nonverbal, not from the neck and up, but just the nonverbal, animal, primitive wailing and ripping of what has happened. And all of these people, and then of course sing the mourner's cottage, saying the prayers for those who have gone. I just wanted to say that because it's like the ancients, the ancestors, that those two words, looking at the ancient traditions, looking at the ancestors, can really be helpful right now.
There's so much wisdom there to turn back to remember, right? Often I talk about laying at the feet or bowing or sitting at the feet of the ancestors, right? In order to get that transmission, that download, right? Because I think sometimes we get really lost in our own despair and our own grief. And instead of tending to it, as you talk about in your work, like facing it, right? Facing the loss, right? instead of facing it, we keep trying to bypass it, right? And that bypassing of grief, it kind of like finds its way into the shadow world, the shadow realm. And anything that gets into the shadow just feeds and grows bigger and bigger until all of a sudden, like everything that we're doing is an attempt not to allow our hearts to break, right? And even those attempts can even mean, like really becoming apathetic, numbing, shutting down, right? Letting go of this capacity to really feel not just our pain, but the pain of others around us, right? And I think that makes us dangerous. It makes us dangerous for ourselves. It makes us dangerous for others around us, right? I tend to the needs and the well-being of those around me through my capacity to feel, right? To feel the commonalities, to feel the ways in which other people are also struggling to be well. But when
Yeah.
that capacity is shut down for myself, I think I definitely shut down this connection to others. And when that happens, other people just they are dehumanized, right? They lose context, right? And when I say they lose context, it means that I forget that there are all these factors in and around them that condition them, influence them to show up in the ways that they're showing up, right?
Yeah.
You
I mean,
know?
I think you're talking again about that stretching ourselves to feel the other and become the other and hold the other. And I mean, there's a comment my eye just went over to the chat for a second, Lama Rod, and saw, a question about, are we blaming one side? No, that's exactly what we're not doing. There's no blame. We're holding the pain of everybody that that constellated together. We are all constellating what's happening.
Yeah,
We
we're all suffering.
we're all suffering, and we're all creating this reality together. There's no blame. It's not like pointing to the other. It's feeling the other and feeling all the factors, the historical factors that brought us to this moment.
I think this is a really particular moment because I have found in my work, Rabbi Tirzah, I don't know if you have found this as well, but like when we're in these periods of heightened collective trauma, we often struggle with the capacity to be with nuance and complexity. In fact, trauma like forces us to oversimplify.
Totally.
You
I
know?
agree totally. Yes.
And I think when you get into the space of trying to like tease out the complexities here, like it becomes triggering for people, you know,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
keeps pointing back to all the unmetabolized trauma that we're still struggling with as well.
Well said. Well said. No, it's so easy to fall into the black and whites and the them and us and the pointing fingers and no, that's not where we're going. It's precisely not. I noticed, Andy, are you wanting us to stop, or are we good?
No, you're good. You keep on going.
Okay, because we're just riffing, right?
Yeah, please keep going. I am getting some questions sent directly to me via
Okay.
chat, but we will get to those soon. And if folks have further questions, send a private chat to me and I will field those to these two. But I think we still have some time for you
That's
two to
cool.
keep going.
I think we should probably name Mother Earth here. And by the way, you said something that was really beautiful, like laying at the feet of the ancestors. Sometimes I just lay down on Mother Earth, not when it's, all snowy and icy, but, laying at the feet, that some people don't understand maybe, and I just want to underscore what you said. I think what I heard you saying was, it's like we're getting, the indigenous peoples understand this, that we're constantly getting information, we're constantly getting guidance. And as modern people, we have in the West anyway, have been trained out of hearing the unseen dimensions. But we're constant, if we just, and I'm talking to myself because I'm not good at this yet, but to just shut up, just shut up and listen, put my ear to the ground, to Mother Earth, put my ear to the ancestors, listen, get my journal out. And because that's how I do it, is write a question and then listen and then write down what I'm hearing. And I look at it later and I realize there's no way my small self could have thought of that. That was coming to me. There is all kinds of guidance and blessing coming to us, but we have to just open the spigots, sort of open the channels so that we can receive it.
And it's hard to listen when we're in so much pain, right? Because I think one of the things that we're trying to listen to is the wisdom of the pain itself.
Say more about that.
I think pain is really trying to show us like what we need to do to heal, but we have to say yes to it, right? We have to kind of go back home to the root of that pain and dwell there and listen, and not only just dwell and listen, but experience, right? Because in my tradition, which is Himalayan, traditions, as well as West African traditions as well. These are my two lineages. To go back to the pain, right, and to listen to it and to experience it is how we start actually getting free, right? That's how we start releasing the pain and transforming the pain actually into wisdom, into
Can
clarity.
you give an example of that? Is there anything you could say, like, as an example of listening to the pain that, I mean, wounds into wisdom? That's my, sort of my byline, but that's a whole process. That's can you say more about what that has been in your life?
Absolutely. Brokenheartedness is something that I've written quite a bit about, in my work. And when I talk about working with our brokenheartedness, I mean, like, I want to feel it. Not just feel it, I want to befriend it, right? I want to say yes to it. In a way, I want to invite it to the table to sit with me, because I won't be able to really listen to the brokenheartedness until I accept it, until I draw it close, until I lean forward into it, right? And as I am experiencing my brokenheartedness, I know that as I experience, I am beginning to feel how my brokenheartedness is a composite experience, which means that, like, there are many different things coming together to create my somatic experience of brokenheartedness, ancestral trauma, pain, woundedness, the things that I've survived in this life, right? The systems and the institutions that may be targeting me and policing me, right? All of that pain gets welled up together. And so when I am listening to the brokenheartedness, there's a way that, like, my experiencing all of this, all the data, all the experiences, I can start actually letting go, right? It's almost as if that energy is just moving and I'm allowing that energy to be released. And in that releasing, I am changing, right?
Like the brokenheartedness is talking to you in words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Right.
it does. Okay.
Absolutely. I think it speaks in words. This is a language. It's somatic experiences, it's visions, it's dreams, right? To say yes to it means that we open in many ways to how all these experiences are communicating with us.
I'm thinking of for many of us, not for all of us, but for many of us, there was a sense after just 2 weeks ago, exactly, I guess, the election, and feeling this sense of what? Like, what? Magical thinking had broken, had shattered our idealism, our hopes, aspiration, all of that was like, what? And what the heck? And there was a sense of, for me, and this is like listening into that loss and grief of losing my dream, of a woman of color leading I had a whole story. I had a whole movie there, and just like, and there was a sense of I had to listen into it. It was so painful, but I realized, I mean, the answer to me when I faced into that loss was, it's hard to put it in words, but the opposite of hubris. It was like this profound humility that we are not so far ahead as we thought. Like we can't afford to be thinking in these ways. We have to come back and include the rest of us. And this is what the people have elected, and this is what we need to. So there was a sense of and I also teach tarot as one of my things, one of my loves. And every single time I would pull some cards, it would be the tower experience, which is the picture of these two towers, and people flying out, lightning bolts. I don't know if you've ever seen that, lightning bolts crashing and people falling, and the towers, the kind of ivory towers, my ideas, my theories, this is what should happen, crumbling. And so there has been for me a huge humbling experience, which has been actually not a bad thing, not a bad thing, because out of humility comes sort of a new chapter.
Yeah, I wonder how you feel about this, Rabbi, too, but I have seen the election as the surfacing of our collective shadow in this country.
Well
And
said.
there's no way that we can bring about the future that we want unless the shadow gets exposed and tended to and worked with.
And integrated.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And I know that so many of us are so heartbroken and disappointed, and so many of us are afraid.
Yeah.
Right? Really afraid for our safety, for
Yeah.
our access to resources. Many of us are. And the hard thing to say at the same time is that it has to happen. Right?
Yeah.
I think we need to see this and just get clear that this is it. This is the shadow. And so what are we going to do now?
That's right. That's right. Unfortunately, that shadow includes a lot of hatred, and
Yes.
And that hatred comes from some place. Maybe it's just base energies in our collective psyche, but maybe it is because of hurt, because of woundedness. It's all going to play out now, and we're going to have to hold each other. And that's the other thing I just do want to say before we do questions. Is like we need each other right now. So I wanted to say yes to this, to meeting you and to talking to you. I knew there would be wisdom. I need to come together with everybody here on Reimagine, and the hundreds of people who signed up for this event. Like that makes me feel warm inside. We're together. We're shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah. And so much of this collective work, right, that we are trying to figure out together is to really understand how to reduce harm, how to reduce violence, right, against ourselves, against others, right, and how to really start promoting or creating a culture of real care and healing, right? That how do we do that and disrupt these systems that get in the way of our healing, like racism and capitalism and patriarchy, misogyny, ableism, ageism, all of the isms, right? These systems are getting in the way of us really centering care, right, over profit, right, over accumulation and materialism, but people and our pain, right? We have to get back, or I mean, maybe for the very first time in this country, in America, establish a real culture of care for one another. And that takes such an intense courage, right? But I will also say it takes a lot of ego death to that. We have to let who and what we think we are die in order for our most authentic, loving, fiercest manifestation to come about, right? And I think fear keeps us from that. Like we're just so much.
I think there has been a collective ego death in this country.
Mhm.
And that means profound change. And yes, it is very fearful to go through that that portal, but hopefully we can do it.
Lama Rod and Rabbi Tirzah, I have a good segue for several questions that have come in based on what just the two of you were sharing about. And one of those questions that came in were, what are some practical ways for us to find compassion for people who have different perspectives than our own? And this feels like a very appropriate question because many of you notice I did take a pause on the chat. So I would love to hear from the two of you, and I think folks would appreciate hearing some tips for us to open up and find compassion for others who may have a different viewpoint.
Yeah. I mean, just from my traditions, right? I can't have compassion for others until I have compassion for myself, right? I have to be in deep practice to hold my pain and to disrupt the ways in which I react to my pain against others, right? And I'm in the same boat, right? There are people that I am just like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to be around you. I live in the South, right? And so this is like, I don't feel like this is a bubble. I feel like I have to be with a lot of different people, and, in a state like Georgia that maybe do not believe I have a right, right to exist, perhaps. And so I start with compassion for myself. I hold myself first, right? I understand why I feel what I feel. I understand my own suffering. I understand, that I'm trying to find safety and happiness, and I'm also trying to avoid suffering. And I get that. And once I understand that about myself, I'm able to offer that same understanding to others. So it may be that I vehemently disagree with you, but I also understand that you're being conditioned in the same ways that I am, that you have these needs. You want to be safe, you want to be happy. Maybe we are going about that safety and happiness in very different ways, right? Maybe your idea of going for safety and happiness actually puts me and people like me in danger, right? And this is how I kind of move through the world. Are your choices creating harm for others? Right?
Very nuanced answer. I love that. I can't add anything to it. I would just, maybe I would add one thing is, I am in a bubble here in Boulder. It is definitely a bubble place. And so I do have to push myself and keep putting myself into others' shoes. And at the same time, I have to watch what I call the window of tolerance, how much, watching the edges of pushing myself. That's why I love what you're saying, Lama Rod. I have to first feel compassion for myself and my own safety levels and my own sense of dysregulation. I know maybe I don't want to invite 10 people over who have, voted for someone that I can't understand like all at once. I have to just take care of myself and push. Again, that tension of opposites. I have to stretch myself as well as be compassionate to myself. Yeah, it's a hard question, Andy. It's good though.
Well, here's another hard question. They're related. I'm going to group two of them together. What are some tools that you use to set boundaries around the unrelenting torrent of collective grief from entering your field and sweeping you away while also staying in your heart so that you may take action? And here's the additional question to that I think is related. My question is, what spiritual practices allow us to be accountable to ourselves, each other, and the divine.
Mm.
Okay, we got several books being written on these things.
That's an easy question.
I love the question about being swept away, sweeping you away from all the
Yeah.
the torrents, actually the torrents of collective grief. Like I said, we are too small to handle this. I am too small to handle this. There is no way I can ever come to teach, or I can ever come into a meaningful session without first opening my skylight, opening my roots, and asking the unseen realms for help.
Mhm.
There is no way in the universe. I am useless because I'm just a flesh and blood person like you are. We're all small and limited and conditioned by our conditioning and all these forces that are playing at us. So yeah, we're going to get swept away unless we root ourselves in something that is bigger than us, that which is greater. That I call it twig, that which is greater than me. So that is my 1, 2, and 3 answer is like I have to become nothing and really own my nothingness, and at the same time I mean that only in a limited sense, but like really becoming nothing and allowing that which is greater than me to guide me and to it's like logging on to something, to the source of compassion, logging on to these powers, the ancestral blessings, logging on to the powers that want evolution to drive forward, the prophets, the great beings that walk this earth before us. And so we log on to those powers, those forces, and then it has to come through our, this ego body mind thing that I am, which I'm not putting down by any means by saying that I am nothing. But I think hopefully you understand what I'm saying. Temporarily, we have to empty ourselves completely, and then speak for that which is greater. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Everything, Roberta, so that you just offered. And I will just add this other piece too. Like, I rely on my community, right? I rely on my beloveds. When I say beloveds, I'm talking about my close people. Like, I take refuge,
Mm.
right, in people who know me, who love me, right? But also who still tell me the truth. They're still truthful with me. They don't enable me, right? But they understand what I'm doing, who I am, right? And I think that we have to get a little more careful about who we're spending time with,
Ah,
right? And then really get very intentional about cultivating spaces where we can really experience care and healing, right? That's the only thing that keeps, well, one of the many things, but in terms of like relationships, that keeps me going right now. Because I think, Rabbi, both of you and I, we occupy this really intense space, which I think is what spiritual leaders are called to do in this moment. We have to stand in the gap and feel the turbulence and feel the fire coming from these extreme ends, right? And it takes a toll, right? And I have to get support from the people who love me, to do this,
wonderful. I love how you wrote, by the way, I just want to give a shout out to this book, Love and Rage, which I'm just finishing. And you talk a lot about, Lama Rod, you talk a lot about the taking refuge. I mean, obviously you're riffing on this ancient Buddhist teaching, right?
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
Buddha, the Sangha, the Dharma, but yeah, taking refuge in the sacred community is a big one. And that can fortify us if it's the right people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that what we're being shown now in this period is that the way forward is through community, through relationships, right? And there's no better medicine for me than being held by the people and the beings who love me, right?
Beautiful.
Lama Rod and Rabbi Tirzah, thank you for being in community with us.
Mm.
Thank you for your voices of calm and sanity in these really polarized, divisive times. I would say for everyone gathered today, if you haven't read their books, Lama Rod's and Rabbi Tirzah's, please do that. That's a step towards action and transformation. So maybe Trina, if you're able to paste those links again in the chat, that would be great. We're gonna pivot now to the next part of this program, which is just another 15 minutes long. We're going to go into breakout sessions. Lama Rod and Rabbi Tirzah have to pop off now, but I will be sharing with you the chat. I'll be following up with both of you, and folks, follow up with them. They can be reachable, through their websites and through their socials. So if your question was not addressed, I would encourage you to reach out to these folks. So for folks who are able to stay and join us for these breakouts, you're so welcome, and I'm glad you're going to stay. For those who have to pop off, if it's not for them, please go. And we hope to see you at other Reimagine events. So please
Thank you, Andy.
some
Thank you.
applause and warmth to Rabbi Tirzah and Lama Rod as they leave. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you soon. So folks, thank you for staying for this breakout session. We're gonna have about 15 minutes. We may go over a bit. I think we allotted our time for 15 after the hour. It may go a bit longer than that, but I wanna make sure you have ample time together. We request though, if you do join these breakout sessions, that we have a minimum of audio participation. There's nothing creepier or weird than being in a breakout room with someone who's not communicating with you at all. So if you can't turn your camera on, that's fine, but we just want you to make sure that you're participating via audio, okay? Everyone's good with that? Great. And please be mindful of the time. I'm going to make sure that I want you to make sure that everyone has time to share. I'm going to try to do 3 to 4 people per breakout rooms. So just be mindful of how much you're sharing. It's not about giving advice to others, and it's about active listening and sharing your own experiences of collective grief and potentially growth at this time. We'll paste instructions in the chat for those who may need help while they're in the breakout rooms. Thank you, Trina, for that. You may want to copy and paste this just in case you need it when you're in the breakout room. So yeah, we'll be in the room for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back together. Let's see. Yeah, I'll give you a heads up when we're coming back to the main room. And I want to give you the prompts now. And Trina, if you could get ready to paste those prompts in the chat, that would be great. So the first discussion point among you in the breakout rooms are, what insights have you gained by struggling with the grief of catastrophic events, both locally and globally, or ancestral trauma? Can you name at least one new opportunity for change, or see at least one new pathway that might have cleared? The second prompt is, what roles can spiritual or mindfulness practices, acts of service, advocacy, or activism can play in your journey towards wholeness? You don't have to do both questions. Just speak to the question that speaks to you in the time that we're together. So now I'm going to pause before I forget our recording, because we don't need to record this section. Okay. I hope your discussions were helpful, supportive, respectful. Thank you all. Once again, those of you who made a donation to Reimagine when you registered for this event. Thank you so much. I also want to ask my colleague Trina to paste in the chat a survey. This is really important for us. You didn't like the prompts that we gave you, let us know. You know, if there are other things about this event that you think we could improve upon, please also include that in the survey that you complete. It's there in the chat. If you could start doing it now, that would be great while it's all fresh in your mind. I did want to give everyone a heads up that we're having a very special event next week. The event is called Why Wait? Living Fully in the Face of Life's Biggest Challenges. And it's a signature Reimagine event. It's a hybrid event. We don't do those very often. So partly in person and partly virtual. We're going to be discovering the ripples of impact that are possible when we grapple with our own mortality. As guests, we have renowned change makers, physicians, and innovators who are all sharing powerful stories of transformation through loss, healing, and hope. And there will be an opportunity to connect with one another as well in breakout rooms. That's about it for us. So thank you all for sticking it out. Oh, I see a message from Mona. There is no survey. That's right. Trina, was that pasted? Let's see. There we go. Thank you, Trina. Does everyone see the link now for the survey? Great.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had it in the wrong room. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So thank you all for joining us today. We'll be sending tomorrow the playback video, links about Lama Rod and Rabbi Tirzah. And I hope to see you all next week. Have a good evening, everyone.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
One of our people got cut off, and I'd like to hear what she had to say. Is there a way to go back to her, or
would you like to communicate with if you know the person's name, perhaps that person can share an email with you. We do have to close the room at this point, but if the three of you in your group would like to stay in touch, maybe now is the time. Thank you. Bye, Brother Moses. So maybe now's the time to share contact with information with one another using the chat function. I will open that up for you. Hold on a second. Let's see. Meeting group chat. I think the chat is now open. Would that work for you to communicate with one another via email?
It doesn't look like it got opened. I can only chat to you and Trina, just so you know.
Thank you. Does it work now for you to use the chat?
I just put in my contact information, but I don't know who it went to.
Yes, I see Norman Sands put that in.
Sheldon.
How about that?
It's still, I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, wait, there. Now it's back. Now it's back.
Great.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay.
Okay. And if anyone else wants to share their emails now with one another, I'm going to leave the room open for another 2 minutes. How's that for folks to share that?
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. I'm so glad
Thank
you came.
you.
Yeah, thanks
Wishing
so
everyone a
much.
restful, peaceful evening.
Yes.
And morning in Australia.
And morning in Australia. Thanks for coming.
So great to be here. Thank you so much.
Have you been to other Reimagine events?
No, I haven't, but I met Rabbi Firestone 25 years ago. So this was such a joy, and just, I can't thank you enough. And to my beautiful group that I just was with, so much wisdom and so much sharing. I just love it. So
Don,
I
I'm
will
so
definitely
glad to
be
hear
back.
that.
Yeah. So all the best to all of you. Bye-bye from me.
Goodbye, everyone.
I thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Take good care.
Bye.
you.
Thank you.